laws that contributions, and the contribution, the payroll tax in America has been changed 20, 25 times since the beginning of the system, and the benefit can change tomorrow morning by an act of Congress. So clearly there is no direct relationship between contributions and benefits, ultimately between effort and reward. And I believe that whenever a society, in a large scale and for a long period of time, destroy the essential link between effort and reward, the end result is a disaster. Why? Because, of course, everyone tried to maximize what they get out from the system. In Latin America, in Europe, for example, striking for premature retirement, special benefits, etc. And everyone tries to minimize what they contribute to the system, under declaring income or having an informal economy, etc., etc. So at the end of the day, you have almost the full population working against your system. Now, that not to mention another force that, of course, Bismarck could not have thought of, the demographic trends. We know about the extending of life, and we know about the lower fertility rate, not so much in the US, but in Europe and so on. And here is another paradox. You see, if tomorrow a doctor were to discover a cure for cancer, we will all be very happy. But the administrator of the Social Security system of the US will commit ritual suicide, you see, seppuku as the Japanese call it, and a lot of Treasury secretaries around the world, because the moment you discover a cure for cancer and you increase life expectancy by 5 or 10 years, not only Social Security, but also a lot of defined benefit systems in the private sector will go bankrupt sooner than ever. So an incredibly good news for the individual is a terribly good news for the government. Something is wrong in a system that is structured that way. So my initial idea in those years, having cappuccinos at Harvard Square, was that workers around the world, and especially in my country, but around the world, were like passengers in the Titanic. They were going directly toward the iceberg of old age. Most captains, president, prime minister were dancing in the deck, as we will be dancing today at the Cuban restaurant maybe. But nobody was really educating the passengers that they would have to either change the course of the ship or maybe even transfer to another ship if it was already too late. Well, I had the opportunity to stay at Harvard and be a professor, something that I really enjoy. But my country was in the deepest political, economic, and social crisis of its history. We even had a quasi-civil war in Chile. So I was called to go back by my friends, my family. They said, you cannot be a Harvard professor while my country is in total economic and social chaos. I went back, I began to explain this idea as a professor in every forum I could, even on television, and one day the president of the nation, whom I had never seen before, called me because he had heard my passion in explaining this idea, and told me that I should become the Secretary of Labor and Social Security if I wanted to do it. I was only 30 years old. I was quite afraid of confronting the Bismarckian paradigm by myself, but the alternative was bankruptcy and, as I said, poverty for millions of Chilean people. So I became the secretary very young, and I decided to confront the problem at its root, to take the bull by the horns, as I understand you have a saying. And I found that there was this enormous opportunity arising from this crisis. Which was the opportunity? That at the same time, all around the world, workers generally are unable to save. Well, in America, 40–45% of them have 401ks, IRAs, but around the world, generally being a worker is getting all its income from a wage. That is something that, of course, Marx understood quite well, and he said that's why workers should do a revolution and the means of production should be owned by the state because only a few can own capital in a capitalist society. And I said, that is not true. Workers should also be able to own capital, but you cannot ask a low-paid worker in America or any worker in a lot of countries of the world to save at the end of the month because they do not have enough income. They pay food and shelter and they end the month with zero in the balance account. So they simply cannot have voluntarily saving. And then I discovered that I could use the fact that they were paying, let's say, 10% of their wages as a payroll tax, employer and employee, that's the same thing from an economic perspective, to create a personal retirement account, to save for retirement, and in that way to become small capitalists, every single one of them, and benefit from the extraordinary power of compound interest. So I have always said that my solution really was simple. The difficult thing was to engineer a transition, to convince the people, to confront the vested interest. But the very concept is very simple. It's to create a national defined contribution system with the contribution being the former payroll tax. So basically the Chilean system works in a way in which the full payroll tax was not a partial reform. I do not believe much in mixed reforms. I believe that if you want to remove your cancer, you should do it completely, not remove it half, you see. So the problem of the Bismarck system was the destroying of the link between contributions and benefit. Well, in a personal account, you have a full relationship. So every Chilean worker now has a little passbook like this. I thought that it was very important at the beginning, I am talking 25 years ago, to show the people the sense that they own property. And we have had forever in Chile these savings accounts. So people were at that time accustomed to almost a savings account. So I remember I went on television explaining all this and telling people, would you rather like to have your money sent to a centrally managed government program? As we know, a sort of black hole in the universe because nobody knows exactly where the money goes and how it's used. Or would you prefer to have your money in a little passbook like this? I even use the word the little passbook. That's how my system is known in Chile. Not defined contribution, capitalization, compounded. No, that is technocratic jargon. I use the little passbook reform, where you have 10% of your wage every single month withdrawn by the employer and sent to the pension manager you choose. Now, the only thing is that you cannot take the money to go to Europe or to gamble in Las Vegas. You see, this is money for retirement, so you have to keep it here, month after month, year after year, and after 40 years of getting the compound rate of return, when you reach 65, you don't look to the government, you don't look on whether the budget is in surplus or is in deficit, or whether the macroeconomics is correct. No, you look at the last line of your passbook. And you would have accumulated a huge amount of money. I already know Chileans with $100, $200, even $500,000. It's the power of compound interest. And I'm sure you know it in your dreams, this sort of exponential growth of your money. Now, at that point, we gave people two options. You can either buy a life annuity indexed to inflation in a private insurance company. And of course, an annuity that has to have family provisions. That is, we took care of the widow, we take care of the orphans, and it cannot be only the man if he's the only one worker. And of course, the woman also has the account. Or you can choose to keep the money in your account and make what we call monthly program withdrawals. Program according to the expectancy of life. That is, if your expectancy of life is up to 80 years old, the formula makes sure that you will have money until 80 plus something, 85. Now, the difference, of course, is that in the first case, if you die after 3 years of retirement, your widow and orphans will get a benefit, but you will